I went to ask my sister for forgiveness, only to overhear her talking to her best friend. Chloe, I've had a crush on your brother for 10 years. He's old enough to get married and start a family, so how about he marries me? My sister's expression was indifferent. Fine, if you want him, he's yours. She didn't know that I was standing right outside the door when she said it. As she wished, I knocked on her best friend's door that very night. Isabella, I'm willing to marry you. By the time we finished discussing the wedding arrangements, it was the middle of the night. We set the date for May 20th, the same day as Chloe's wedding. Neither of our parents had any objections. After all, it was a double celebration. When I got home, Chloe shot me an indifferent glance. I told you to stand here for 2 hours, and you disappear for the entire night. Where did you go? Were you planning on never coming back? Her words stopped me in my tracks. Without looking up, I said softly, "That's right, I won't be coming back." With that, I went upstairs. The next morning, as soon as I came downstairs, I saw Ryan Harris sitting next to Chloe, swiping through something on a tablet. Hearing me, Ryan quickly looked up, his eyes instantly brimming with triumph. "Ethan, come help me pick a watch for the wedding. I'm going cross-eyed looking at all these options." I walked over, and as soon as I sat down, Ryan shoved the tablet into my hands. Then he wrapped an arm around Chloe and said gently, "Chloe, my eyes are killing me. I still can't decide which one to pick." Chloe's body tensed for a moment before she relaxed, her tone indulgent. "Still haven't found one you like? Should I call in a few more designers?" The next moment, Ryan's gaze landed on me. A sense of foreboding washed over me as I saw the look of absolute certainty in his eyes. Sure enough, Ryan gave a deliberately troubled smile. "Actually, there is one I love, but I'm afraid someone might not be willing to part with their treasure." Chloe chuckled, her voice laced with dismissiveness. "Who? As long as you like it, I'll buy it for you no matter the cost." Hearing this, the smile on Ryan's face finally blossomed completely. His slender finger pointed to my wrist. I happened to be very fond of that watch. Following his finger, the smile in Chloe's eyes instantly froze. That was the watch she had given me for my 18th birthday. When she gave it to me, her eyes were full of warmth. "I designed and supervised the making of this myself, for my dearest brother. It's the only one in the world. No matter what happens, you are never to take it off." I had always taken her words to heart, never taking it off. Once, it fell off while I was skiing, and Chloe spent the entire night searching for it in a blizzard. She knew exactly how much that watch meant to me. Before she could speak, I heard myself say, "Fine, since you like it, consider it a wedding gift." I didn't care. After all, if I was giving up on Chloe, the woman I loved most, why would I care about a watch? Without another thought, I took off the watch and handed it to Ryan. Ryan took it with a look of delighted surprise. Chloe's hand, resting on the sofa, trembled slightly, her eyes showing a flicker of disbelief. But before she could say anything, Ryan's gaze fell to my collarbone. He was about to thank me when his eyes lit up, and he pointed. "Ethan, that tattoo on your collarbone looks familiar." "CS, what does that stand for?" My expression faltered. I quickly pulled my hand back and saw Chloe staring at me, her eyes as dark as ink. Yet her tone seemed to relax inexplicably. "Didn't I tell you the other day to have that tattoo removed? You haven't done it yet?" I forced a small smile, my voice steady. "Don't worry, I've already scheduled it." Just as I finished speaking, the butler showed in the tattoo removal specialist who had just arrived. "Mr. Sterling, hello. When would you like to begin the removal process?" The specialist bowed to me. "Let's do it now." I then lay down on the nearby chaise lounge and watched as the specialist laid out his tools and began to work on me. The pain quickly seared through my skin. A cry escaped my lips, but I instantly thought of the two of them on the sofa and forced the sound back down. Ryan covered his eyes as if in fear, but Chloe didn't even glance at him to offer comfort. Her eyes were fixed on me, my face pale as I lay on the chaise. A moment later, the specialist asked curiously, "Mr. Sterling, I remember when you got this tattoo. You said you would never have it removed, not in this lifetime." I managed a weak smile, trying to sound casual. "That was then, this is now. I just don't like it anymore, so I want it gone." A complex emotion flickered in Chloe's eyes. She finally broke her silence. "If it hurts too much, just stop." The specialist hesitated as well, chiming in. "He's right. It would be a shame if it left a scar." My gaze sharpened. I forced a smile through the pain. "Keep going." Once the tattoo was gone, I went upstairs alone, not bothering to look back at their expressions. Over the following days, I did my best to avoid Chloe, pouring all my energy into my own wedding preparations. I spent my days trying on suits and choosing rings, trying to push her image from my mind, piece by piece. One day, as I was about to head out, I saw Chloe on the phone. "Chloe, my wedding is in 2 weeks." Hearing Isabella's voice, I froze in the middle of putting on my shoes and glanced at Chloe's profile. A flicker of surprise crossed Chloe's face, and she let out a low chuckle. "Who's the lucky guy who finally captured your heart? Which prominent family is the groom from?" Isabella's smiling voice came through the phone. "You'll find out then. Just make sure you're ready to celebrate." I breathed a quiet sigh of relief and went back to putting on my shoes. Hearing the noise, Chloe glanced back at me, a note of regret in her voice. "I can't make it. I'm getting married that day too." Isabella's surprised voice came from the other end. "What a coincidence. Even though I can't be there, you're my best friend. I'll have a gift sent over for you two later. Congratulations in advance." I didn't listen to the rest of their conversation. I picked up my phone to leave just as Chloe hung up. She suddenly called out to me. She glanced at her watch. For the past few days, I'd been leaving around this time and not returning until 10 at night. The thought brought a hint of annoyance to her voice, one she didn't seem to notice herself. "Going out again? What have you been so busy with lately?" I tapped my fingers on my phone screen. "Busy with what?" "My wedding, of course." I gave her a vague answer and walked out the door. At the Morgan estate, I looked at my reflection in the suit and my breath hitched. In the mirror, my hair was neatly styled, with a few strands falling naturally to frame the contours of my face. The exquisitely tailored suit perfectly accentuated my build, drawing admiring glances from those around me. Mrs. Morgan took several pictures, saying she had to show Isabella. I scratched my head, feeling a bit embarrassed, and went back to the dressing room to change. Just then, the doorbell rang. The butler came in holding an elegant gift box. "This is from Miss Sterling, an early wedding gift to congratulate Miss Morgan." It was a beautifully designed watch, its face gleaming. It was obviously expensive and a very thoughtful gift. I walked out just as I finished changing, and Mrs. Morgan waved me over with a smile. "Ethan, come look. This is the wedding gift your sister sent for you and Isabella. Your sister is something else. She could have just given it to you directly, but she had to send it over like this." That's when I remembered what Chloe had said on the phone that morning. Before I could refuse, Mrs. Morgan had already fastened the watch around my wrist. At 10 that night, I pushed open the door to the Sterling estate to find the house brightly lit. I immediately saw Ryan on the sofa while Chloe sat beside him, peeling a tangerine. She meticulously removed every bit of white pith before placing a segment in his mouth. I calmly looked away and bent down to take off my shoes. The soft sound of my shoes hitting the floor made them both look up. Chloe casually wiped her fingers with a napkin, then stood up and walked towards me as I headed for the stairs. "Ryan's place is being renovated, so he'll be staying with us for a few days." I gave a non-committal nod, but my calm reaction seemed to annoy her, and her cool voice took on a sharp edge. "And another thing, get rid of those inappropriate ideas of yours." She didn't finish her sentence. Her gaze froze. The next second, she grabbed my wrist, a storm brewing in her eyes. Her voice trembled, on the verge of hysteria. "Why are you wearing this watch?" Following her gaze, I realized I had forgotten to take off the watch. I was taken aback and frowned. "What watch?" "A friend gave it to me. Can you please let go?" Chloe seemed to snap out of it, realizing her mistake. She finally calmed down, and after a long pause, she asked in a low voice, "Which friend?" I looked at her, confused as to why she was pressing the issue. "A female friend." At the words female friend, Chloe's hand, hanging at her side, clenched into a fist. Just as she was about to ask more, Ryan walked over. He draped his arm around Chloe's shoulders possessively. Though his words were apologetic, his tone was anything but sincere. "Sorry, Ethan. I didn't think you were coming home tonight, so I only prepared a candlelight dinner for Chloe and me. You don't mind, do you?" I glanced at Ryan, my voice even. "It's fine. I've already eaten." With that, I went upstairs. In the dim light of the sconce, I took off the watch and tossed it into a drawer. Its warmth still lingered on my skin. I reached for the glass of water on my nightstand and found it empty. I got up to go downstairs for some water, but as I opened the door, I came face to face with Ryan, who had just changed. Seeing that we were alone, his amiable expression instantly morphed into a sneer of provocation and contempt. He smoothed down his silk pajamas, tilting his chin up slightly. "Ethan, like my pajamas?" I gave his pajamas a cursory glance and looked away without a word. My silence seemed to fuel his smugness. He clearly thought I was heartbroken. His smirk widened. Your sister picked these out for me herself. Said she's had them waiting for me for a while. She's going to be the one tearing them off me tonight. As if remembering something, he covered his mouth, a fake blush coloring his cheeks. Oh, I forgot. You've never even been in a relationship. I shouldn't be talking about this stuff with you. But my expression remained unchanged. Just as I was about to speak, he raised his wrist, revealing a string of prayer beads. You know, I really have to thank you. If you hadn't taken pity on me and brought me over to the Sterling estate all the time, I never would have met someone as wonderful and loving as your sister. You see, I always envied you. Your sister made that pilgrimage to St. Jude's Chapel on Lunar Peak for you, kneeling every 3 steps all the way to the summit, just to get a blessed rosary for your safety. And look, she did the same for me. Looking at those beads, my heart clenched. A torrent of emotions washed over me. I could almost see it, the year I had a fever for 3 days straight, and she made the pilgrimage, kneeling every 3 steps to the chapel on the summit. I saw her piously placing the blessed rosary on my wrist, whispering, "May God watch over you, and keep my boy safe, always." The image shifted, and I saw her placing another rosary, obtained with the same devotion, on Ryan's wrist, saying the very same words to him. I took a deep breath, pulling myself from the memory, only to see Ryan ready to gloat about something else. I lost all desire to go downstairs for water. I simply shut the door in his face. Late that night, after tossing and turning for what felt like hours, I was finally drifting off when I heard my doorknob turn. I rubbed my eyes and started to sit up, but a slender figure was already walking towards me, pushing me back down onto the bed. The faint scent of gardenia told me who it was, and my entire body went rigid. "Chloe, what are you doing?" My very soul was trembling. Just as she leaned in closer, I shoved her off me. With a soft thud, the intoxicated woman fell to the floor. I took several deep breaths to steady myself, then called for one of the housekeepers to come help her back to her room. I quickly locked the door behind them and got back into bed, but sleep was now impossible. What was Chloe thinking? Why would she suddenly come into my room and kiss me? Was she so drunk she thought I was Ryan? I didn't sleep a wink that night. The next morning, it took me a long time to pull myself together before I finally went downstairs. As soon as I entered the dining area, I saw Chloe placing food on a plate, then picking up a piece with her fork and offering it to Ryan, who was beside her. Ryan smiled sweetly, his eyes crinkling with delight. "Chloe, you're so busy at the office every day. How do you find time to cook?" My hand on the banister tightened. I remembered when I first came to live with the Sterlings. The housekeeper at the time didn't care much for me, seeing me as an outsider, and would often serve me leftovers. That is, until Chloe came home unexpectedly one day to grab some files and saw what was happening. She fired the housekeeper on the spot. From then on, she took care of me herself, learning to cook and do my laundry. Back then, I would always eat every last bite of whatever she made, and then tell her with a big smile, "Your cooking is the best, Chloe." And she would always pat my head affectionately and say, "If you like it that much, then from now on, I'll only cook for you." But now, I heard her ask another man, "How about I only cook for you from now on?" Ryan's smile grew even wider. He gave Chloe a few quick kisses before they both turned and walked towards the dining table. It was only then that they noticed me standing by the staircase. Chloe clearly didn't remember what had happened last night. She gave me a brief, cold glance before looking away. Ryan, on the other hand, greeted me warmly. "Ethan, I didn't think you were coming down for breakfast, so I only had Chloe make enough for 2. You're not upset, are you?" I had no intention of playing along. I didn't even look at him as I walked past them and into the kitchen. Since it had been a long time since I'd cooked for myself, by the time I emerged with a barely edible breakfast, the two of them had already finished eating. I kept my eyes down and quietly ate my food, but then I heard Ryan exclaim from across the table, "My God, Ethan, what happened to your hands? You've got cuts all over them." My lack of practice in the kitchen had left several conspicuous cuts on my hands. I didn't want to engage with him, so I said nothing. It was Chloe, who had been looking at her phone, who paused. She glanced at my hands, then turned to Ryan as if nothing was wrong. "Your birthday is coming up. The venue is all booked. Do you want to go check it out?" Ryan took her hand, his face lighting up. "Really? Let's go now then." Soon I was alone at the table. Without looking up, I silently finished my breakfast. Chloe threw an incredibly lavish birthday party for Ryan. She spared no expense, booking the entire Riverside Grand Hotel and inviting a slew of business magnates and celebrities to celebrate with him. The entire ballroom was adorned with crystals and flowers. To the side of the stage stood a custom-made, 10-foot-tall castle cake. I stood in a corner, silently observing the extravagant scene. His birthday party was more extravagant than any I had ever had. It seemed Chloe was truly head over heels for him. It was strange. Perhaps because I had already decided to let go, I felt no pain at all. As confetti rained down, the party reached its climax. In front of everyone, Chloe presented her gift, a custom diamond ring, the heart of true love. The entire ballroom erupted in gasps and murmurs. When the ring was first unveiled, it had been purchased by a mysterious buyer for an astronomical price, sparking widespread curiosity. Now, they finally knew the owner was Chloe, and that she had bought it to delight her fiancé. A friend standing next to me sighed with envy. I'm so jealous of Ryan, to have a fiancé who spoils him like that. A multi-million-dollar ring, just like that. I wish I had a fiancé like her. I tuned out the rest of his words. As the party wound down and I was about to leave, Ryan blocked my path. He smiled, stroking the diamond ring on his finger, and spoke slowly. Ethan, even though Chloe loves me so much, I still want to test just how deep that love goes. Before I could process his words, he gave me a smile that sent a chill down my spine. The next second, he threw himself backward into the 10-foot-tall cake. Before I could even react, someone shoved me aside. Chloe rushed to Ryan's side, helping him up and tenderly wiping the frosting from his suit. Ryan weakly grabbed her hand, tears welling in his eyes as he choked out, "Chloe, I don't know what I did wrong. I just wanted to show Ethan my ring, and he got angry and pushed me into the cake." His words made me go cold. I opened my mouth to defend myself, but was met with Chloe's glacial stare. It was a look as cold and sharp as a winter wind. "Ethan Sterling, have I spoiled you so rotten that you've completely forgotten your place? I've told you before, Ryan is going to be your brother-in-law, the man of this house. You will respect him. This childish behavior stops now. Now, apologize to him for what you just did." This wasn't the first time she hadn't believed me. At first, I would have tried to defend myself, and it would have hurt because she once told me that if I just said it wasn't me, she would believe me, no questions asked. But over time, it didn't matter what I said. She always took Ryan's side. My heart was numb to it now. I just pointed to a nearby security camera. "There's a camera right there. You can check the footage and see the truth for yourself." Just as Chloe was about to respond, Ryan's body went rigid and he collapsed. Without another word, Chloe immediately had him rushed to the hospital, not sparing me a single glance. Suddenly, the sky opened up and it began to pour. The guests had all gone. I sat alone in the empty ballroom, watching the curtain of rain outside until it blurred my vision. The rain fell all night and I sat there all night. The rain finally stopped the next morning, and I returned home. But the moment I pushed open my bedroom door, I froze. The entire room had been ransacked, as if by a burglar. Most importantly, the only thing my mother had left me was gone. I frantically searched everywhere, tearing the room apart, but I couldn't find it. I was about to call the police when Ryan's voice came from behind me. "Looking for your jade pendant?" I shot to my feet and lunged at him, grabbing his arm. "Did you take it?" He shoved me away with a look of disgust, a malicious grin spreading across his face. "What if I did? I came in here looking to borrow a shirt and saw the pendant. For fun, I tossed it to a stray dog outside. Oh, and the dog didn't go far. You might still be able to catch it if you hurry." A roar of fury ignited in my veins. I didn't have time to deal with him. I just ran. Sometime while I was inside, it had started raining again. The heavy drops pelted my face and body, stinging my eyes. But I didn't care. I just kept searching for that dog. I was alone in the downpour. Then, a flash of yellow darted in front of me. My heart leaped, and I started to run, but the screech of tires stopped me dead. An angry driver leaned out his window and yelled, "Are you trying to get yourself killed?" My face went pale. I quickly apologized and scrambled out of the way. By the time I looked up again, the dog was gone. Cold dread filled me. It was the only thing my mother had left me. If it was gone, I would have nothing left of her at all. Biting my lip, I continued my search along the riverbank. Finally, I spotted the dog. I lunged, trying to get the pendant from its mouth. The startled dog began to bark frantically, and in the ensuing struggle, I lost my footing and was dragged into the river. When a kind stranger finally pulled me out, the pendant in my hand was shattered. My world went dark. I don't even remember how I got home. The moment I opened the door and saw Ryan, all my pent-up rage exploded. My eyes burning, I swung my fist straight into his face. He staggered back, holding his face, staring at me in disbelief. The rage in my chest was suffocating, my body shaking uncontrollably. "Ryan, what the hell do you want?" He looked stunned for a moment, then his eyes fell to the shattered pendant in my hand, and his anger vanished. He smirked. What do I want? Nothing. I just want to destroy everything you care about. My blood boiled. Before I could say another word, Ryan's eyes suddenly reddened, and he clutched his face. A moment later, Chloe strode into the room. Seeing his bruised face, her expression turned to ice. Who did this? As if finding his protector, Ryan's eyes welled up, and tears streamed down his face. Chloe, don't blame Ethan. It was my fault. I was careless and broke the pendant his mother left him. Ethan Sterling. Chloe looked at me, and whatever she was about to say caught in her throat. She had rarely seen me cry. The last time was 6 months ago, when she discovered my secret. Now, my eyes were bloodshot with rage, tears threatening to spill over. Chloe's hand at her side clenched, but she ultimately took Ryan's. I know that pendant was important to you, but Ryan didn't mean for it to happen. I'll have an identical one made for you tomorrow. There are other ways to solve problems. You didn't have to resort to violence. With those few dismissive words, she tried to sweep the whole thing under the rug. In that moment, all my anger dissolved into a profound sense of hurt. Tears streamed down my face, blurring my vision. I knew she loved Ryan, but I never imagined she would go this far for him. She knew that pendant meant more to me than anything. I finally broke down sobbing, but I still said stubbornly, I don't want a new one. I want this one. But Chloe just handed me a credit card. Then find someone to repair it yourself. She held the card out to me. In that moment, we weren't brother and sister. We weren't family. We weren't the closest people in the world to each other. We were strangers. It was as if her fiancé had broken a passerby's most precious treasure as a prank, and she had casually tossed a credit card at them, saying, Here, this should cover it. Don't bother me again. And I was that pitiful stranger. I suddenly started to laugh, a broken, miserable sound. With a trembling hand, I took the card. Without another glance at them, I walked upstairs like a zombie. After that day, I fell seriously ill. After running a fever for 2 days, the first thing I did when I recovered was to take out a notebook and create a detailed list of every expense the Sterling family and Chloe had ever paid for me. I calculated the total and found I was still several $1,000s short. So, I started selling all the gifts Chloe had given me over the years online at a discount. Because the prices were low, everything sold out quickly. That evening, I went downstairs with the debit card, ready to find Chloe. But she found me first, striding towards me with her arms full of the very gifts I had just sold. She placed the items on the table in front of me, her eyes like ice. The Sterling family is not so destitute that you need to sell things to make ends meet. If you need money, you just have to ask. I glanced at the gifts, then placed my itemized list and the debit card on the table. This isn't about making ends meet. It's about paying you back for everything you've ever spent on me. Paying me back? She was silent for a moment, her cool voice tight with suppressed anger. Are you still throwing a tantrum over that little incident? I told you Ryan is my fiancé. In a few days we'll be family. Can't you show your future brother-in-law some basic respect? Listening to her, I knew she had completely misunderstood. I wasn't throwing a tantrum. I was drawing a line in the sand. But I had no desire to explain myself. I left the card on the table and walked away. From that day on, we were at a stalemate. She prepared for her wedding and I prepared for mine. With less than a week to go before the weddings, I got a call from my old college class president about a reunion on a cruise ship the following week. I wasn't planning on going, until he mentioned that our old professor, Mrs. Davis, would be there. Mrs. Davis had been my professor, but she had also taught Isabella's class. She had always been very kind to me in college, so I thought it would be a good opportunity to give her an invitation to our wedding. On the day of the reunion, the cruise ship was bustling with people. I chatted with a few classmates before heading down to the private suite to find Mrs. Davis. As I reached the bottom of the stairs, a murmur went through the crowd at the entrance. I looked up to see Chloe making her entrance on Ryan's arm. Ryan was impeccably dressed in a bespoke suit that shimmered under the lights, but even more dazzling was the ring on his finger. A crowd of former classmates, many of whom used to look down on him, now flocked around him, showering him with envious praise. Ryan, that ring is incredible. I heard it's worth a fortune, and that suit is custom-made too. Chloe must really love you. That's nothing. I heard Chloe bought this entire cruise ship for him, just because he said he was tired of land-based reunions and wanted to feel the ocean breeze. From a distance, I looked away and headed for the suite, missing the meaningful glance Chloe cast at my retreating back. Inside the suite, I handed the invitation to Mrs. Davis. Professor, Isabella and I are getting married next week. We'd be honored if you could come. She took it with a delighted smile, squeezing my hand. Isabella is such a wonderful girl. I've practically watched her grow up. She's so kind and thoughtful. You two will be very happy together. Married? Who's getting married? Ryan, who had suddenly appeared in the doorway, looked over in surprise. I met his gaze but didn't acknowledge him. After a few more words with Mrs. Davis, I left the suite. But as soon as I stepped out, Ryan blocked my way. Ethan Sterling, after I marry your sister, I'll be your brother-in-law. I still need a best man. If you beg and I'm in a good mood, I might just let you have the honor. I refused coolly. No, thank you. I walked past him, but as I stepped onto the deck, a powerful shove sent me stumbling backward. As I was about to fall into the ocean, I instinctively grabbed onto Ryan's outstretched hand, and we both plunged into the water. Cries of alarm went up. Chloe, who had rushed to the railing, dove in after us without a moment's hesitation. The icy seawater flooded my nose and throat, burning all the way down. I struggled to swim to the surface, but the violent waves disoriented me, slamming into me one after another. In my daze, I saw a familiar figure dive into the water. She swam straight past me to Ryan, pulled him into her arms, and headed for a life raft without a backward glance. Watching the raft move away, I choked on a lungful of water, and then a massive wave pulled me under. Everything went black. I woke up in the hospital. Lying in the hospital bed, I looked at my phone. Ryan had sent me a series of photos of Chloe doting on him at his bedside. Since I had woken up, the only person who had entered my room was the nurse. I closed my eyes and calmly turned off the screen. Suddenly, my phone began to vibrate nonstop. I opened it to see dozens of messages from Isabella. Ethan, I'm back in the country. I heard what happened. Which hospital are you in? I'm coming to see you right now. From now on, I'll be by your side. Nothing like this will ever happen again. I was surprised to see her messages. She had said she wouldn't be back until the day before the wedding, but here she was, back early and wanting to see me. Seeing that I hadn't replied, she called. I cleared my throat before answering. Isabella, why are you back already? Because I wanted to see you, so I wrapped up my work early. Which hospital are you at? I'm on my way. Hearing the undisguised worry in her voice warmed my heart. Isabella, you don't have to. I'm being discharged today. You just got off a long flight. You should go home and rest. I found myself stammering. Besides, we're getting married soon. It's bad luck for the bride and groom to see each other right before the wedding. There was a moment of silence on the other end, followed by a soft sigh. But Ethan, I'm so worried about you. It was the first time she had called me just Ethan. I felt my face flush, and I managed a small smile. Isabella, I'm fine, really. I know that once I'm married to you, every day will be a good day. She hummed in agreement, then promised solemnly, Ethan, I will spend my life protecting you and making you happy. With me, you can always be yourself. Her words caught me off guard, and my eyes welled up. Okay, I whispered. Winter was over. It was time for spring. I wasn't lonely during the rest of my hospital stay. Isabella called me every day, and she arranged for private nurses and even a security guard to watch over my room. On the day I was discharged, I was still on the phone with her, smiling, as the car pulled up to the Sterling estate. Just as I was about to go inside, a voice came from the doorway. Who were you just talking to? I looked up to see Chloe standing there, her expression grim. I looked away and said calmly, a friend. A friend. What kind of friend makes you smile like that? So much that you can't even hang up when you get home? I could hear the anger in her voice, but I remained calm. Is that all you wanted to ask me, Chloe? My question seemed to make her suppress whatever emotion was welling up inside her. She held out a gift. The reason I saved Ryan first is because he has thalassophobia, and I haven't been to see you because he's been in shock. She trailed off when she saw my completely impassive expression. I didn't take the gift. I cut her off coolly. Thank you for the thought, Chloe, but you don't need to apologize to me. One is your future husband, the other is your adopted brother. It's only natural you would save him first. With that, I brushed past her and walked into the house, not giving her another look. The night before my wedding, I sat in my room and deleted every photo of Chloe and me from my phone, one by one. The oldest one was from my first day at the Sterling estate. She had pulled me in for a selfie. In it, my eyes were filled with fear, and hers were filled with kindness. The most recent one was taken the day before she found out how I felt. In that one, my eyes were full of a love I couldn't hide, and hers were full of affection for me. Now, all that was left between us was distance. 5,200 photos. They documented most of our youth together and my 7-year-long love for her. With a single tap, they were all gone forever. Suddenly, there was a knock on my door. I opened it to find Chloe standing there. I was surprised to see her the night before her wedding, but I had no desire to find out why she was there. My voice was flat. "Can I help you?" My tone made her flinch. Since when had I become so distant? She suppressed a pang in her chest and said softly, "It's nothing. I just wanted to see if you were asleep yet." My expression was blank. "I was just about to. If that's all, I'm gonna close the door." "Ethan, The words rushed to her lips, but when she saw my face, she stopped. The hand at her side clenched and then relaxed. After a long moment, she seemed to force down whatever she was feeling, her expression turning cold again. The words died on her lips. "It's nothing. Get some rest." I murmured an affirmation and closed the door. But I didn't go to sleep. I spent a long time packing a box in my room. Then, I carried it to Chloe's door and left it outside. The next day, Chloe, already in her wedding dress, opened her door to find the large box I had left. The familiar handwriting on the label told her immediately who it was from. She had been on her way downstairs, but she turned and knocked on my door instead. "Ethan, what's the meaning of this box?" After a moment of silence from inside, my voice came through the door. "It's your wedding present." Before Chloe could say more, Mrs. Sterling's voice drifted up from downstairs. "Chloe, hurry. The cars are here to pick you up." She called back a reply, then asked if I was coming with her. My voice was firm. "No, you go on ahead. I have something to take care of. I'll meet you at the venue." Chloe knew I was still angry with her, so she didn't press the issue. But she remained standing at my door, her heart suddenly beating faster. She had a strange feeling that if she left then, she might never see me again. She raised her hand again, knocking frantically this time. "Ethan, open the door. I need to." Her words were cut off by Mrs. Sterling, who had come upstairs to hurry her along. "Chloe, what are you still doing here? Let's go, you'll be late. Whatever it is, you can tell your brother later. You'll see him at the wedding." That was true. She would see me at the wedding. The thought seemed to calm her, and she followed her mother downstairs. The moment she was gone, I opened my door. Dressed in my own wedding suit, I walked down the stairs, took one last look at the home I had known for years, and got into my car without looking back. 2 separate wedding processions drove off, heading in different directions, but toward the same venue. For the Sterling family, it was a day of double celebration. In the bustling banquet hall, lights glittered and glasses clinked, the scent of wine mingling with the chatter of the crowd. When Ryan went to the groom's suite to rest, Chloe immediately went looking for Mr. and Mrs. Sterling, and for me. But she searched the entire venue, from top to bottom, and couldn't find any of us. She wasn't panicked, but a deep sense of unease began to settle in. A lot of things suddenly didn't add up. She remembered seeing 2 sets of wedding gifts in the living room the night before. She remembered the wedding decorations on my door. She remembered the glimpse of a white suit she'd caught when she knocked on my door. And she remembered that my phone had been going straight to voicemail all morning. Panic began to overwhelm her. She quickly found the event manager. "Where are my parents and my brother?" The manager looked at her, confused. "Miss Sterling, didn't they tell you? Today is Mr. Ethan's wedding too. Mr. and Mrs. Sterling went to attend his ceremony. It's in this same hotel. They said they'd come right over after the ceremony is finished." The words hit her like a physical blow, and her vision swam. She grabbed the manager's arm, her face pale. "Whose wedding?" "Mr. Ethan's, miss." The next moment, she let go and ran for the exit without a second thought. The wedding planner rushed to intercept her, speaking cautiously. "Ms. Sterling, the ceremony is about to begin. Where are you going?" Chloe shoved her aside and ran out the door. "Cancel the wedding." Meanwhile, on the stage of my own wedding, I was nervously fidgeting with my suit. At first, I hadn't felt any particular excitement for this wedding. It was more like a means to an end. But now, in this moment, I was more nervous than I had ever been in my life. Finally, the officiant's voice rang out. "Please welcome the bride." The large doors at the end of the aisle slowly swung open. My gaze was soft but steady as I watched, a bouquet of white roses in my hand, waiting for my bride. The moment I saw Isabella at the end of the aisle, all my nervousness vanished, replaced by pure, joyful anticipation. As the gentle melody of the wedding march began, a smile spread across my face as I waited for her to walk towards me. "Ethan Sterling." The familiar voice made my hand, holding the flowers, freeze. Isabella continued to walk towards me, her eyes locked on mine. The doors slammed shut in Chloe's face. She stood frozen, staring at the closed doors. How dare he? How dare he marry someone else? In that instant, all the panic in her heart turned to rage. She fought to control the storm of emotions inside her as she strode forward to push the doors open. Security guards quickly moved to block her path. "Ma'am, you can't go in without an invitation. Get out of my way. The man getting married in there is my brother. Why can't I go in?" The two guards exchanged a look, but before they could respond, Chloe tried to push past them. A tearful voice called out from behind her. "Chloe!" She turned to see Ryan standing there, trembling, his eyes red. "What are you doing? Today is our wedding." At the mention of the word wedding, a flash of impatience crossed her face. "Ryan, our arrangement is over. The wedding is cancelled. You should go." Ryan's face went white, his hands clenched into fists, his nails digging into his palms. Arrangement. It was always just an arrangement. Ryan Harris was not a simple man. He had clawed his way up from poverty, using countless people to get to where he was, to become Chloe Sterling's fiancé. From the moment he first saw a picture of her in a magazine, he had set his life's goal: marry Chloe Sterling and become part of the family. To that end, he had carefully orchestrated everything, getting close to me, manipulating me, and finally getting into the Sterling household, where he discovered my secret feelings for Chloe. He knew that in a family like ours, such feelings were taboo, which gave him the perfect opportunity to get close to her. All it took was a few carefully placed words in her ear, and she confronted me about my secret. Chloe was furious, but torn about what to do. After all, she had raised me. So, suppressing his excitement, he proposed a deal. He would pretend to be her loving fiancé to help her deal with me, and in return, she would pay him. He had stood before her then, dressed in faded clothes, looking at her with pitiful eyes. Anxious to solve her brother problem, Chloe had agreed without much thought. But as the act went on, Ryan's ambition grew. He pushed her boundaries, step by step, until the position of Mr. Sterling was almost his. But my decision to get married on the same day had thrown his entire plan into chaos. Ryan hid the flash of malice in his eyes and stepped forward, his expression crumbling into one of hurt. Tears streamed down his face as he looked up at her. "But the invitations have all been sent. What will people think of me?" Whether he was acting or not, no man wants his bride to leave him at the altar. Chloe seemed to realize this, and her tone softened slightly. "I'll handle it. You should go." Without another glance at him, she pushed open the doors to the ceremony hall. My wedding had reached the most crucial moment. The officiant was asking if I would take the woman before me as my wife. I looked at Isabella, who was smiling at me, her eyes reflecting only me. The words "I do" left my lips, quiet but firm. The smile in Isabella's eyes deepened. I cupped her face in my hands, about to kiss her, when the doors burst open with a loud bang. "Ethan Sterling!" Chloe strode towards me, her face dark, reaching for my hand. But Isabella stepped between us, her voice sharp with annoyance. "Chloe, this is my wedding. What do you think you're doing?" It was only then that Chloe seemed to realize that the woman I was marrying was her own best friend. The feeling of betrayal washed over her. The boy she had raised for 16 years, and the woman she had known for over 20, had married each other behind her back. She reacted instinctively, slapping Isabella across the face. "Isabella!" Screams erupted as the two women began to fight, throwing the ceremony into chaos. "Stop it! That's enough!" I rushed forward to pull them apart. My shout made Chloe hesitate for a second, and in that instant, Isabella shoved her to the ground. With a final thud, what should have been a beautiful wedding came to an abrupt and chaotic end. After the last guest had gone, I finally lost my composure and slapped Chloe across the face. "Are you finished?" The force of the slap snapped her head to the side. She stood stunned for a long moment before slowly raising her fingers to wipe the blood from the corner of her lip. Isabella quickly stepped in front of me, as if to protect me in case Chloe retaliated. Chloe let out a cold laugh, her eyes unreadable as she looked at me standing behind her supposed best friend. "You're marrying her?" I gripped the fabric of Isabella's dress, my own gaze just as cold. "Isn't this exactly what you wanted?" Chloe, pushing me away, letting Ryan hurt me over and over, forcing me to go on all those dates. "Wasn't it all just to get me out of your life? Well, now you've gotten your wish. Shouldn't you be happy?" "Chloe, enough. Stop calling me that." The name that had once been so familiar now sounded like nails on a chalkboard to her. She looked at the man before her. The little boy who used to cry in her arms was now a handsome man in a wedding suit, holding another woman's hand. A sharp pain shot through her heart. She clenched her fists, trying to suppress the unfamiliar feeling. Change out of that suit and come home with me. We'll pretend none of this ever happened. Isabella's eyes went cold. Chloe, I forgot to mention, Ethan and I already signed the marriage license. He's my husband. Legally married? Chloe instinctively reached for my hand. Then go get a DIV. Before she could finish, Mrs. Sterling, who had just arrived, slapped her across the face. Chloe, have you lost your mind? Behind her, Ryan stood with his eyes red from crying. Hearing Ryan's sobs, Mrs. Sterling's anger flared. Not only did you abandon your own wedding, but you came here to ruin your brother's? Are you insane? As the scene descended into chaos once more, Chloe opened her mouth to speak, but Mr. Sterling, who had just arrived, cut her off. All of you home, now. Haven't you caused enough of a scene for one day? In the car on the way home, I stared out the window, my brow furrowed. Isabella, sitting beside me, took my hand and gave it a gentle squeeze. I turned to look at her. I'm sorry you had to see all that today. I didn't tell her I was getting married, for obvious reasons. I tried to predict how she would react. I guess I naively thought that since she didn't love me, she wouldn't care. But she almost ruined our wedding. It's not your fault. Isabella pulled me into a hug, her expression full of sympathy, and kissed my cheek. The night she picked me up from the hospital, I had told her everything about Chloe and me. After all, she was going to be my wife. She had a right to know. Besides, if it created a rift between us, it was better to call off the wedding and cut our losses. But her only reaction had been sympathy for me. She said there was nothing wrong with loving someone, especially when my love had been crushed before I even had a chance to confess it. And now, Chloe was trying to ruin my wedding on top of it all. All the pent-up frustration and hurt I had been carrying finally came pouring out. I clutched her dress and cried without making a sound. Late that night, the lights were on all over the Sterling estate. Mr. and Mrs. Sterling sat on one sofa, while the two couples sat on opposite couches. Mr. Sterling looked at his disheveled daughter, and the anger he had suppressed earlier flared up again. Do you have any idea how much your impulsive behavior today is going to cost the company's stock tomorrow? I don't care what your reasons are. You will issue a public statement immediately, announcing that your wedding to Ryan Harris is back on. At his words, the two people on the opposite sofa reacted very differently. Ryan gripped the fabric of his pants, trying to hide his elation, while Chloe shot to her feet. I won't do it. Ryan and I are completely impossible. What do you mean you won't do it? Mrs. Sterling looked at Ryan's reddening eyes and felt a surge of irritation. He really wasn't from a prominent family. He cried at the slightest provocation, so fragile. Mrs. Sterling had never approved of the match, but had reluctantly gone along with it because her daughter seemed to love him. Now, with her daughter refusing to marry him, her headache was returning. Marriage is not a game, Chloe. I told you multiple times to think carefully before you committed to this. Now, all of Los Angeles knows you're getting married. If you back out now, our family will be a laughingstock. Chloe sat down again, rubbing her temples. Finally, she confessed the secret she had been keeping for so long. It was just an arrangement. It wasn't real. We never even got a marriage license. Her words made everyone in the room's expression change. Mrs. Sterling shot to her feet. What did you just say? You never got a license? Was that license you showed us a fake? In their social circle, it was an unwritten rule to get the license before the wedding ceremony, as a form of security. Hearing Chloe admit it, Mrs. Sterling's headache intensified, and she swayed on her feet. Mr. Sterling quickly helped her back to the sofa and poured her a glass of water. Chloe looked around at everyone's shocked faces. Even my own calm expression had faltered. At first, I had suspected they were putting on an act, but Chloe's behavior towards him had convinced me it was real. No one would be that committed to an act, giving away a multi-million-dollar ring, spending a fortune to set him up in business. No one would believe she didn't love him, that it was all just an act. Seeing the doubt in everyone's eyes, a wave of helplessness washed over her. My expression, in particular, seemed to cause her a pang of pain. Didn't Ethan believe her? He used to believe everything she said. Feeling her eyes on me, I looked up and gave her a sarcastic smile. You've been playing a part for so long, you've started to believe it yourself. Chloe opened her mouth to speak, but Mrs. Sterling rushed to her side, feeling her forehead. Are you feeling all right, dear? Have you been under too much stress lately? Mr. Sterling chimed in. Take some time off from the company. We'll talk about this when you've had a chance to calm down. With that, he and Mrs. Sterling started to head upstairs. But Mrs. Sterling seemed to remember something and turned to Ryan. We don't have a room prepared for you, Ryan. It's best if you go home for tonight. As the house began to quiet down, I stood up, ready to leave with Isabella. But Chloe's voice stopped me. Her eyes were filled with a desperate helplessness. I really was just acting with Ryan, but she couldn't bring herself to say the rest. How could she explain it? That after she realized my feelings, she hired Ryan to put on a show to push me away? That once I was gone, her arrangement with Ryan would be over? But I didn't believe her. I just looked at her, my gaze as cold as hers had once been. Acting? Who would be that committed to an act? You hurt me over and over for him. You let him frame me. You threw me out in the rain. You let him destroy the only thing I had left of my mother. You left me to drown in the ocean. You wounded me, body and soul. And now you're telling me it was all an act. Do you even believe that yourself? Chloe, I'm not that little boy anymore. The one who hung on your every word and believed everything you said. I can think for myself now. Without another glance at her, I took Isabella's hand and walked out. The Sterling and Morgan estates were neighbors, so it was only a 10-minute walk to Isabella's family home. Since our new house was still being renovated, we were staying there for the time being. After seeing our marriage license, Isabella's parents had left for an overseas business trip, so we had the entire sprawling mansion to ourselves. We sat cuddled together on the sofa for a long time before I finally spoke. I know she was acting. If her kiss that night had planted a seed of doubt, her words tonight confirmed it. What other reason could there be for her act? It was all to push me away. In her mind, a relationship between us, even without blood ties, was wrong. So she brought in Ryan to play a part. But maybe she played the part for so long that she not only convinced me and everyone else, but she also started to convince herself, getting lost in the role. She convinced herself she didn't love me. She convinced herself she loved Ryan. If she hadn't stumbled upon my wedding today, she probably would have kept the charade going. She didn't stop because she was flustered. She stopped because she was scared. Maybe she didn't even realize it herself, but she was in love with me. Otherwise, the always calm and composed Chloe would never have done so many uncharacteristic things, or said so many bizarre things. But I just found it all so ironic. She had so many ways to push me away, but she chose the cruelest one imaginable. And then, after she had finally succeeded, she suddenly had regrets, treating love and marriage like some kind of game. I've moved on now. It doesn't matter anymore whether she loves me or not. But Isabella wasn't so sure. As a woman, she recognized Chloe's bizarre behavior for what it was, regret. But Chloe herself didn't seem to realize it, while I had seen it clearly. Remembering what I had told her that night in the hospital, Isabella hesitated. What if Ethan regretted his decision, too? After all, he had loved Chloe for so long, and our marriage had been so sudden. The next moment, my hand closed firmly around hers. I kissed the corner of her mouth, my voice firm. In the beginning, it's true that I married you for a reason, but now I know my own heart. I won't go back to someone who hurt me so many times. I can tell you, without a doubt, that the person I love now is you. I started to pull away, but she pulled me back. An intimate warmth spread between us, and outside the window, the night-blooming jasmine seemed to close its petals in shyness. The next morning, while we were still asleep, the phone on Isabella's nightstand buzzed. She picked it up, and the moment she unlocked it, her screen was flooded with trending notifications from Twitter. As quiet as she was, the movement was enough to wake me. Seeing her frown, I asked with concern, "What's wrong?" Just as she was about to answer, my phone started ringing too. I answered it. It was Mrs. Sterling. Her sigh came through the phone. "Ethan, if you have a moment, please come home." After hanging up, Mrs. Sterling looked at her daughter, who was kneeling on the floor, and felt a surge of anger. She had told Chloe to calm down last night, but instead, her daughter had gone straight to the company's official social media and announced that her engagement to Ryan was off. The news had apparently sent Ryan into such a state that he'd gotten into a serious car accident on his way over, and he was still unconscious. "I told you to calm down, not to do this." Kneeling on the floor, Chloe kept her eyes downcast, hiding the pain within them. The memories of the previous night resurfaced, dragging her back into the abyss. She had sat on the sofa for a long time that night before finally heading upstairs, her head throbbing, only to find the wedding gift I had left for her. She had stared at it for a long time before picking it up, taking it into her room, and sinking to the floor to open it. When she saw what was inside, she held her breath. Inside were all the gifts she had ever given me, but there was something else, too. Gifts I had bought for her. She suddenly remembered a summer afternoon when we had watched a movie together. She couldn't remember the plot, only that at the end, the hero had given the heroine a series of gifts, each one related to their future wedding. I had enviously tugged on her arm, saying that when I got married someday, I would do the same for my bride. Looking at the dates on the receipts, she saw they were all purchased the day before she had discovered my secret. I had been planning to confess to her using these gifts, but she had shattered that dream before I ever had the chance. Giving them to her now was just my way of putting a final, proper end to that chapter of my life. In a daze, she could almost see me before her again. She saw me greeting her cautiously, saw me hunched over a desk, carefully trying to sketch her portrait, saw me standing before her with red eyes, asking how it could be wrong to love her, his sister with whom he shared no blood. And finally, all those memories merged into the image of me at my wedding, looking at her coldly and saying, "I'm marrying someone else. Isn't this what you wanted? After all, you don't love me." The words replayed in her mind like a curse, the pain so intense she had to clutch her head. Did she really not love me? Did she really not love me at all? The walls she had built around her heart began to crumble. If she didn't love me, why did it hurt her so much to see me in pain? Why did she feel such rage when she saw me receive a love letter from someone else? And why had she lost all control at my wedding? One by one, the questions led to a single, undeniable answer. She loved me. It was because she loved me that she had reacted that way, that discovering my feelings had caused her so much pain. So what if we weren't related by blood? The inevitable gossip and judgment from the outside world would hurt me, and how could she bear to see her Ethan get hurt? So she had pushed me away, again and again, bringing in Ryan to play his part. She had known what Ryan was doing to me, which is why she had tried to secretly make it up to me. After he had thrown himself into the cake, she had slapped him across the face in private. When he broke my pendant, she had had someone break his arm. And after he pushed me into the ocean, she had had her men throw him back in. She had done these things to remind herself that it was all an act, that the one she truly loved was me. But in front of me, she maintained her facade of indifference. This fractured existence, over time, had blurred the lines between reality and the role she was playing. So when Ryan had begged her for a real wedding, a grand finale to their story, she had, for some inexplicable reason, agreed. If she hadn't stumbled upon my wedding, she might have remained lost in her own charade indefinitely. What's going on? A familiar voice pulled her from her thoughts. Chloe looked up to see Isabella and me walking in. I was taken aback to see her kneeling on the floor, but I quickly composed myself and led Isabella to a nearby sofa. Mrs. Sterling sighed, gesturing towards her. "I told your sister to calm down last night, and what does she do? She goes and publicly calls off the wedding, and now Ryan's in the hospital after a car crash, still unconscious." Isabella had filled me in on the way over, but seeing the situation for myself, I realized it was even more serious than I had thought. Chloe was always so careful and calculated. I had never seen her act so impulsively. As for the reason, I looked up at Chloe, and my eyes met hers. I immediately looked away, turning to Mrs. Sterling. "Mom, you don't look well. Why don't you go upstairs and rest? I'll talk to Chloe." The whole affair had clearly taken its toll on her. She hadn't slept all night. After a few more words, she let me persuade her to go upstairs. I turned back to Chloe and sighed. "Get up." A housekeeper helped her to her feet and guided her to the sofa. "Chloe, I know why you called off the wedding, but marriage isn't a game. You spent months publicly curating this perfect love story with Ryan. You spent a fortune on a wedding fit for royalty, and now you just call it off. Have you even thought about the consequences?" Her hand, holding a glass of water, trembled. Her eyes were filled with pain. She knew the consequences perfectly well. She had already spent a fortune on a PR team to mitigate the damage to the stock price, and her father had been up all night dealing with the board. She had even sent someone to the hospital to check on Ryan. Right now, all she wanted was to tell me the truth. She wanted to tell me that she finally understood her own heart, that she loved me, and to ask if I could give her a chance. But she seemed to have forgotten that I was already married. I could tell from her expression what she wanted to say. After all, I had known her for 16 years, so I cut straight to the point. "I'm only here today because Mom asked me to talk to you. I don't want to discuss anything else." I took Isabella's hand. "Besides, Isabella and I are supposed to be leaving for our honeymoon. Right now, you need to focus on damage control, and you should go see Ryan, settle things with him, and stop upsetting Mom and Dad." I hadn't wanted to say that last part, after all he had done to me. But I also knew that Ryan would never have been so bold if Chloe hadn't enabled him. And besides, a man's life was at stake. Without another word to her, I took Isabella's hand and left. I didn't breathe a sigh of relief until we were outside. I knew what she wanted to say, but it was too late. No matter what she said or did, we could never go back. She had created this mess herself, and I didn't want to escalate things any further. Our parents had been through enough. I rambled on, and Isabella just listened quietly. When we got back to her house, she pulled me into a tight hug. No matter what you decide to do, I'm with you. If you're tired, you can lean on me. I didn't say anything else, just leaned my head on her shoulder. In the days that followed, Chloe seemed to take my advice. She didn't contact me, and the negative press surrounding the family died down. After a few reassuring phone calls with Mrs. Sterling, I finally relaxed and started planning our honeymoon. Our original plan had been to leave for France on our wedding night. But because of everything with Chloe, our trip had been postponed. Today, we were finally setting off. But on the way to the airport, another sudden phone call made our driver turn the car around. Ryan had woken up, and upon learning that Chloe had officially called things off, he had gone to the roof of the hospital and was threatening to jump. When Isabella and I got to the roof, we saw a crowd of emergency responders. In front of them, on the ledge, stood Ryan, with Chloe trying to talk him down. A hospital administrator saw us and quickly pulled us aside to explain the situation. Chloe and Mrs. Sterling had rushed to the hospital as soon as they heard. Mrs. Sterling, who had never liked Ryan, had apparently said some harsh words to him, but Ryan had retorted, upsetting Mrs. Sterling so much that she had to be admitted for observation. The incident only deepened Chloe's disgust for him, but a life was on the line, so she was suppressing her anger and trying to reason with him, even offering him money to come down. But Ryan didn't want money. He wanted to be Mr. Sterling, and so they were at a stalemate, neither one willing to back down. I looked over and saw Ryan perched precariously on the ledge, his face twisted in a crazed, desperate expression. Chloe, you're the one who agreed to this charade. You're the one who gave me hope. You're the one who told the whole world I was going to be your husband. And now you just call it off? What are people supposed to think of me? After all this time we spent together, did you really feel nothing for me at all? I love you so much. I would have done anything for you. Why are you doing this to me? You just want me gone, don't you? Fine, I'll go. If I die, you'll get your wish, won't you? Then you can be with Ethan. Then he laughed like a madman. But I'm telling you, you can forget about that. His gaze shifted past her, past me, and landed on the crowd of reporters who were live-streaming the event. Every single word I say today is being broadcast live. And when I'm done, not only will the Sterling and Morgan families know about you and Ethan, but all of Los Angeles, the whole world. He pointed a shaking finger at Chloe, then at me. His voice rose to a shout. Chloe Sterling is in love with her brother, Ethan Sterling, and he's in love with her. You're disgusting. So what if you're not blood related? You were raised as brother and sister. Ryan had thrown all caution to the wind. He was no longer pretending to be the gentle, loving man. He had nothing left. She had destroyed everything. Why should he let her walk away unscathed? As Ryan's crazed rant continued, Chloe's face grew paler and paler. Even my own expression had hardened. This wasn't about him wanting to be Mr. Sterling anymore. This was about him wanting to destroy us. The reporters were broadcasting every word live. Online, the video was going viral. It meant that countless people now knew what he was saying, knew about our past. They wouldn't care if it was true. They would just see it as a juicy piece of gossip, a scandal to be shared and laughed at. The company's stock was going to plummet. Seeing that he was about to say more, Chloe cut him off. That's enough. How long are you going to keep this up? At her words, he let out a chilling laugh. Keep this up? What else do I have to lose? You're the one who drove me to this. Chloe, I'm going to die right here in front of you, and you're going to live with the regret for the rest of your life. With a vicious smirk, he began to lean backward, but a first responder lunged forward, tackling him back onto the roof. He hit the ground hard, and paramedics immediately swarmed him, holding him down to prevent him from trying anything else. Chloe finally let out a breath of relief. She turned and saw me standing a short distance away, watching her. She opened her mouth to speak, but a scream from behind cut her off. Look out! She stood frozen, watching as the calm expression in my eyes turned to one of horror. A sharp pain pierced her back. People screamed and rushed towards her. Some of them tackled Ryan, who was standing behind her, wresting a knife from his hand and pinning him to the ground. Others rushed to her side, trying to stop the bleeding. Chloe! Someone was screaming her name. She collapsed to the ground, her mouth moving but no sound coming out, as her world faded to black. I stood outside her room, looking through the thick glass of the ICU door. She was on a ventilator, sleeping. Isabella squeezed my hand reassuringly. They got to her in time. The doctors say she's stable now. We just have to wait for her to wake up. I nodded, but my brow remained furrowed with worry. No one had expected him to go berserk again, to break free from the paramedics and pull out a hidden knife. If the blade had gone any deeper, she would have died right there on the roof. Just then, a police officer approached me. "Mr. Sterling, the suspect, Ryan Harris, is asking to see you." In the interrogation room, Ryan sat with his head bowed, his hands and feet in shackles. At the sound of the door, he slowly looked up. When he saw it was me, a triumphant smirk spread across his face. He had said so much on that rooftop, revealing our deepest secret to the world. He could only imagine the chaos it had caused for our family, the media frenzy. "Ethan Sterling, you're disgusting. Falling in love with your own sister. Isabella, look at the kind of man you married." But neither of us reacted. We remained perfectly calm. His laughter grew louder, his eyes flashing with malice. "Ethan Sterling, I can't wait to watch your life fall apart, to see you cast out by both the Sterlings and the Morgans, ending up even more pathetic than me." At that, I let out a small laugh. I looked at him, my eyes filled with pity. "Then I'm afraid you're going to be disappointed." I saw his smile freeze on his face. "Those things you said on the rooftop, they're just baseless accusations. There's no proof. Besides, the Sterling family has enough influence to make a few news stories disappear, and you have absolutely no evidence to prove that there was anything inappropriate between Chloe and me. In a way, I have Chloe to thank for that. The day she found out, she made me destroy everything that could possibly be used as evidence of my feelings for her. And besides," Isabella added, taking my hand and smiling softly, "I already knew about all of that. The person Ethan loves now is me. What's more, Chloe and I aren't related by blood. He and Chloe aren't related by blood." We said it at the same time, then looked at each other and smiled. "And before we got married, I had my legal records changed back to my biological parents' name. Officially, the Sterlings' relationship to me is as the guardians of an old friend's orphan son. Chloe and I haven't been legal siblings for some time now." As my last word fell, the color drained from Ryan's face. His entire plan had crumbled. He began to struggle against his restraints, his face contorting with rage. "Why? Why? Ethan Sterling, why do you always win? Why do you get to have such a good life?" I frowned. Given our different backgrounds, our paths should never have crossed. But I had a soft spot for him. When I saw his parents, who clearly favored his younger brother, track him down at school to beat him and demand money, I couldn't help but step in. I helped him, gave him things he needed, remembered his birthday, even brought him home for dinner and introduced him to Chloe. I thought my kindness would be met with gratitude. Instead, I got betrayal. After Chloe found out about my feelings, I overheard him on the phone with his parents, gloating. He was bragging about how he had discovered my secret and told Chloe, and how he was now certain that the position of the Sterling family son-in-law was his for the taking. And all of it, I realized, stemmed from his jealousy. He was jealous that even though I was an orphan, I was still loved. I lowered my eyes. No one knew how much pain I had been in after my parents died. No one knew how many cold shoulders I had endured when I first arrived at the Sterling estate. Ryan continued to spew his venomous resentment, his eyes like a cornered snake's, trying to drag me down with him. But I had no desire to engage with him any further. There was nothing more to say. The heavy door closed behind me with a resounding thud, and I let out a deep sigh. Thinking about what he had said, my heart grew heavy. We might be able to fool the public, but we could never fool Mrs. Sterling. She was too sharp not to see the truth in Ryan's words. As for how she would treat me now, my steps faltered. Isabella, walking ahead of me, noticed I had stopped and turned back. "What's wrong?" Quickly shook my head. "Nothing. Let's go." I sat alone by Mrs. Sterling's hospital bed. I handed her a glass of water before I went back to peeling the apple in my hands. She watched me, my head bowed, not daring to meet her eyes, and let out a soft chuckle. "What's this? You have the courage to fall in love with Chloe, but not the courage to look at me?" The long strip of apple peel in my hand snapped. I cautiously looked up at her and saw that her eyes, though smiling, held no trace of anger. "Mom, she smiled. "You know, when we first brought you home, the thought did cross my mind to raise you as a potential husband for Chloe. But I decided it was better to respect both of your choices. If you fell for each other, I wouldn't stand in the way. If you didn't, I wouldn't force it. It seems it just wasn't meant to be for you two." Hearing her words, my eyes began to sting. On the way to the hospital, I had prepared myself for the worst, rehearsing all the things I would say. But not only was she not angry, she was comforting me. Why? Most people would think that a relationship between a brother and sister, even an adopted one, was wrong, taboo. She took a piece of the apple one had cut for her. You two aren't related by blood. And now that you've changed your legal name back, you're not even legally siblings anymore. To be honest, if you and Chloe had figured out your feelings for each other earlier, we would have terminated the adoption on your 18th birthday, so you could have courted her under your own family name. Chloe was just too panicked. There were so many ways she could have handled the situation, but she chose the worst one. And now, she's paying the price for it. We chatted for a little while longer before she said she was tired and waved me away. I stood up and tucked the blanket around her before leaving the room. I almost ran right into Isabella, who was waiting for me just outside the door. How did it go? She asked, her face full of concern. It's all sorted out. Mom was much more understanding than I ever could have imagined. Then why do you look so sad? She took my hand. I was just thinking, Chloe and I really weren't meant to be. It's only today, after we've both gone our separate ways, that I find out no one in our family would have been against us. But it's too late. I won't go back to her. I have someone who truly loves me now. I smiled, the corners of my eyes crinkling, and kissed her on the forehead. She responded with an even more loving kiss of her own. After a long kiss, we walked out into the setting sun, arm in arm. We didn't see Chloe around the corner, sitting weakly in a wheelchair, being pushed by a nurse, her eyes filled with a profound sadness and regret. After everything that had happened, we finally rebooked our trip to France and set off on our honeymoon. From the Champs-Élysées to the Eiffel Tower, we walked hand in hand, taking pictures in front of every landmark. At sunset, we returned to the Morgan family's chateau, sitting on the balcony, sipping champagne and watching the sun go down. We finished the last of the champagne and fell asleep in each other's arms. The next morning, 2 news alerts about the Sterling family popped up on my phone. The first was that Chloe had woken up from her coma and had been moved from the ICU to a regular room. The second was about Ryan. He was charged with attempted murder, but due to the severity of the crime and the Sterling family's influence, he was sentenced as if it had been murder. He got 7 years. I stared at the screen for a long time before turning it off and pulling my beautiful wife closer, drifting back to sleep. After 2 weeks in Paris, I got a call from Chloe. Ethan, I held my breath. I didn't know what to say to her. Everything that needed to be said had been said that night. Chloe, if you have nothing to say, then let's not say anything. I'm hanging up. Wait. Her panicked voice came through the phone, followed by a fit of coughing. After a moment, she continued, her voice weak. I found out, from my mother, we could have been together, not as brother and sister, as a couple. We could have gotten married. So, I asked her, what's the point of regretting it now, Chloe? If you needed everyone else's permission before you were willing to take a single step towards me, then that's not a love I want. Not everyone waits around forever. When I loved her most, she pushed me away because she was afraid of what people would say, of the gossip. But now she knows that not only would no one have opposed us, they would have supported us. And now she wants me back. But I don't love her anymore. A relationship isn't about one person waiting for the other to love them back. It's about 2 people choosing each other at the same time. I took 99 steps towards her, and not only did she refuse to take even one, she actively pushed me away. So you're calling me now to tell me that you regret everything because you found out no one would have stood in our way, and you want me back? Why couldn't you have chosen me before you knew that? Why now? Chloe, what were you so afraid of? The line went silent. For a long time, neither of us spoke. The only sound was our breathing. Suddenly, I just felt exhausted. She never gave me an answer before I hung up. I stared at the blank screen of my phone for a long time. Isabella waved a hand in front of my face, bringing me back to the present. What did she say? You were smiling a minute ago. Now you look so down. I took her hand as we walked back to our hotel. She said she regrets everything and wants me back, I said quietly. A thought occurred to me, and I leaned in to whisper in her ear. If she really tried to get me back, what would you do? Her grip on my hand tightened. That's not going to happen. I won't give her the chance. I never would have guessed that my casual question would turn out to be a prophecy. While we were ice fishing on a frozen Lake Superior, we saw a familiar figure. It was Chloe. Perhaps because she was still recovering, her face was even paler than before. A private nurse hovered by her side, watching her carefully, as if afraid she might collapse at any moment. I stayed where I was, holding my fishing rod, and watched as she slowly made her way across the ice and sat down in front of us. Ethan, you asked me what I was afraid of. I came here to tell you in person. I didn't move, didn't even look up from my fishing line. She began to speak softly. I wasn't afraid for myself. I was afraid for you. I was afraid you wouldn't be able to handle the gossip. An orphaned boy, falling in love with his guardian's daughter. The whispers alone would have been enough to drown you. You've always been so protected. You've never had to face any real hardship. I couldn't imagine how you would have coped with all the hateful things people would have said online. I took a deep breath. Just then, my fishing rod twitched. I quickly reeled it in, and with Isabella's help, I pulled a large, flapping salmon onto the ice. I unhooked it and placed it in our cooler. I rebaited my hook and dropped the line back into the water. Only then did I look at her. But I wasn't afraid, I said, my voice even. When I realized how I felt about you, I had already prepared myself for the worst possible outcome. As long as you were willing to stand with me, to take just one step towards me, I would have had the courage to face anything. But you never once asked me what I wanted. You just made the decision for both of us and pushed me away. And now, after I'm married to someone else, you come to me saying you've finally realized your true feelings and expect me to come back to you. Chloe, life doesn't work that way. I reeled in my line, stood up, and began to pack our things. As Chloe instinctively reached for me, the ice around us suddenly cracked. Look out! Isabella shoved me out of the way, but she and Chloe both plunged into the icy water. Fortunately, the local search and rescue team was nearby and arrived quickly. Because the ice was already starting to refreeze, they said they could only pull one of them out at a time. I was lying flat on the ice, my heart pounding with fear. When they asked who to save first, I didn't hesitate. Isabella, I said. Her injuries are worse. It only took 10 minutes to get them out, but for the two women in the freezing water, it must have felt like a lifetime. As soon as they were out, they were treated by paramedics and rushed to the hospital. In the ambulance, I held Isabella close, trying to warm her with my own body heat. She weakly tried to raise a hand to tell me she was okay, but my tears fell onto her cold skin. Seeing me crying silently, her own face filled with pain, she managed to lift her head just enough to kiss me. Her cold lips met my tear-streaked face. She managed a weak smile. If you keep crying, your face is going to get all blotchy. A sob escaped my lips, and I finally broke down completely. And Chloe, lying on the gurney next to us, saw it all. Watching our intimacy, an indescribable ache rose in her chest, catching in her throat. She turned her head to look out the window, a faint, bitter smile on her lips. They both had to stay in the hospital for a week to be treated for hypothermia and frostbite. And for that entire week, I never left Isabella's side. It wasn't until the day before she was discharged that I finally found a moment to visit Chloe in her room. Seeing how frail she looked, I felt a pang of guilt. I didn't mean for them to save you second, I said apologetically. But you saw Isabella was in worse shape. That's why I told them to get her first. It was the truth, and no matter how much it hurt her, there was nothing she could say. Chloe looked at my calm expression and was suddenly reminded of the explanation she had given me after Ryan and I fell into the ocean. She had been just as calm, which only made her excuse seem all the more pathetic in hindsight. Chloe lowered her gaze, hiding the pain in her eyes. We sat in silence for a long time, until the sky outside was dark once more. I finally stood up, told her to get some rest, and turned to leave. Ethan, her voice stopped my hand on the doorknob. I didn't turn around, just waited for her to continue. If I had been brave enough to take that step towards you back then, would we have had a chance? But life isn't a novel. There are no what-ifs. With that, I walked out, leaving her alone in the room once more. She stared at the slightly ajar door for a long time, then let out a bitter laugh and covered her face, hiding her tears. Because of the accident, Isabella and I had to cut our honeymoon short and head back home. Chloe was on the same flight. When we landed, the three of us were supposed to head to the Sterling estate to let everyone know we were safe, but Chloe got a call from the prison and had to go there directly. She hadn't seen Ryan since she'd been discharged from the hospital. She'd had her assistant handle all the follow-up matters. So when she saw him now, sitting on the other side of the partition, she didn't recognize him at first. She had seen him in many states, but never like this. His hair was dull and matted, his face gaunt and scarred. His eyes were lifeless. Looking at the pale woman before him, Ryan felt a surge of satisfaction. Chloe Sterling, look at you now. He spoke slowly, his voice cold, and she frowned, tapping her fingers impatiently on the arm of her chair. She hadn't wanted to come, but there were some loose ends regarding his sentencing that required her personal attention. After she was finished, she had been about to leave, but on a whim she decided to see him. After all, he had been a part of her life for a long time, and this was the result. She had no patience for his ramblings. As she stood to leave, he let out a sharp cry. With a loud bang, he slammed his hands against the glass partition, his eyes filled with a thick, dark hatred. Chloe, why do you still get to live so well? You're the one who gave me hope, and you're the one who crushed it. Why don't you just die? Chloe. She turned back, her gaze cold. Ryan, I hired you to play a part. I never asked you to hurt him. If you had just played your part without hurting him, I would have given you a generous check when it was all over. But you had to push it. You brought this on yourself. But he was too consumed by hatred to listen, just kept repeating that she would get what she deserved. Without another glance at him, she walked away. A bitter taste filled her throat. Retribution? She had already received it. Losing me was her greatest punishment. That evening, the Sterling estate was brightly lit. At the dinner table, Mrs. Sterling kept piling food onto my and Isabella's plates. Eat up, both of you. You've gotten so thin. Later, as we were all sitting in the living room, chatting over tea, we heard a car pull up outside. The butler hurried to the door, opening it with a respectful bow. Miss Sterling, welcome back. Shall I have the kitchen prepare your dinner? No, thank you. Before she could say more, she saw Isabella and me getting up to leave. She opened her mouth to speak, but Mrs. Sterling beat her to it, asking us to stay the night. It's so late, just stay here. I've had your old room kept up for you. I politely declined, explaining that our return had been so sudden, we still had a lot to sort out at our own place. Mrs. Sterling was about to protest, but then she saw Chloe walking towards us. Why are you back so late? Where have you been? Mrs. Sterling asked her suddenly. The question seemed to snap Chloe out of her daze. Nowhere. Mom's right. It's late. You should stay. After answering her mother, she turned to look at me. I met her gaze with a careless smile. She used to let Ryan taunt me, call me an outsider in my own home, and then she arranged dozens of dates for me, trying to marry me off as quickly as possible. Now that I was actually married, she was the one asking me to stay. The irony was not lost on me. No, thank you. I'm a married man now. I have things to take care of at home. My words seemed to remind her of all those dates she had arranged for me. Back then, she had been so eager for me to get married, to put an end to any possibility between us. Now things were so different. I had done exactly as she wished, but the eager anticipation she once felt was gone. It was another beautiful day. Isabella finished her phone call and waved me over. As soon as I reached her, she linked her arm through mine. What's up? She gave me a quick kiss. Our last wedding didn't exactly go as planned, and I wasn't there with you for the preparations. So I was thinking, we should have another one. This time, I want to be by your side for every step of the way. I squeezed her hand, my heart swelling with warmth. I'd love that. A wedding should be a happy memory, not one filled with regret. We were both people of action, so we started planning the new wedding right away. Both our families were thrilled with the idea and immediately offered to help. I was genuinely excited about having another wedding. The first one had been so rushed, and I hadn't really had any expectations for it, so the whole thing felt a bit surreal. But this time, with the woman I loved by my side through it all, I was filled with anticipation. And because I was involved in every detail, I finally understood just how much work goes into planning a wedding. From choosing the venue to picking out the rings, every decision required careful consideration. To choose the venue, we looked through 1,000 photos from our wedding planner before finally settling on the Morgan family's chateau in France, since most of Isabella's relatives lived there. Seeing me tracing the photo with my finger, Isabella placed her hand over mine and smiled. Last time was so rushed, I never got to give you a proper tour. This time, we'll go early and explore. I smiled and nodded. Just then, the doorbell rang. A moment later, the butler brought a box to me. Sir, this was just delivered from the Sterling estate. He didn't say what it was. I thanked him and took the box, but when I saw what was inside, the smile froze on my face. It was the watch I had given to Ryan, the watch I had once treasured more than anything. I held it for a long moment before setting it aside. Looking back in the box, I saw the jade pendant, the one Ryan had destroyed. It had been professionally restored, with no trace of the damage remaining. I didn't have to ask to know who had sent it. I just didn't understand. Ever since I had let go of my feelings for her, she seemed determined to return every single thing to its rightful owner. The pendant, I understood, but why the watch? And at the very bottom of the box was the ring she had given to Ryan. The thought that he had touched all these things made me frown. I took out the pendant and pushed the box away. But Isabella's sharp eyes spotted a small note tucked into the bottom of the box. She picked it up, glanced at it, and handed it to me. What's this? I took the note and read the few lines Chloe had written. Ethan, Ryan never touched any of these. Please accept them as part of your wedding gift. There's more, which I'll have sent to the wedding. Congratulations. I won't be there. I stared at the note for a long time, but in the end, I said nothing. This time, since we weren't in a rush, we took our time, planning the wedding while we traveled. Took over a year to get everything just right. A month before the wedding, Isabella and I flew to France with my parents, where we were warmly greeted by hers. As the wedding day drew closer, my nerves finally kicked in, and I started having trouble sleeping. Before the first wedding, all I could think about was escaping the Sterling estate, escaping Chloe, so I had slept like a baby. But now, all I could think about was marrying Isabella, the woman I loved, and I was a bundle of nerves and excitement. Seeing how I was, Isabella started reading to me every night before bed, sometimes for hours, until I finally drifted off to sleep in her arms. The night before the wedding, as is tradition, we slept in separate rooms. We had written letters to each other to read that night, to ease the separation. Reading her words, feeling the depth of her love for me, I was overwhelmed with happiness. Just then, there was a knock on my door. I quickly put the letter away and let my mother in. "Mom, is everything okay?" She smiled. "I'm just too excited to sleep. I thought I'd come check on you, and I brought you something. It's a wedding gift from your sister." She handed me a box. Inside was a complete set of sapphire jewelry. I instinctively tried to refuse. It was far too extravagant. But my mother pressed it into my hands. "It's from your sister. You should take it." With that, she told me to get some rest and left the room. I looked at the jewelry, my heart filled with a complex mix of emotions, before finally placing it in the nightstand drawer. The wedding day was bright and cloudless. Isabella, in a stunning couture gown, held her father's arm, taking deep breaths to calm her nerves. Soon, the gentle notes of the piano began to play, and she started her walk down the aisle, passing under arches of flowers, step by step, towards me. The rest of the ceremony felt like a dream. Her father solemnly placed her hand in mine. We exchanged vows and rings, and as the officiant pronounced us husband and wife, we shared a kiss to the sound of applause. Outside, a spectacular fireworks display began, and the guests gathered with us on the balcony to watch. Overcome with emotion, Isabella and I looked at each other, and then shared another deep kiss. Because the wedding was being live-streamed globally, Chloe, back at the Sterling estate, saw the entire thing. She had now seen me in a wedding suit twice, and both times I was marrying another woman, while she could only watch from afar. She let out a bitter laugh, which turned into a violent coughing fit. The private nurse rushed to her side, patting her back, offering her water and medication, until she finally caught her breath. Looking at her pale face, the nurse couldn't help but advise, "Miss Sterling, in your condition, you really shouldn't be putting yourself through this kind of stress. You need to stay calm." After some gentle persuasion, Chloe finally calmed down and told the nurse she needed to rest. After the nurse had gone, she turned back to the computer screen. The screen was frozen on the image of Isabella and me at the altar. It was a picture of perfect happiness, but to her, it was like staring into the sun. If she had been there, she might have lost control just like last time and done something crazy. That's why she had forced herself to stay home. Besides, in her current condition, she wasn't well enough to travel. She glanced at the wastebasket beside her bed. Inside were several tissues, stained with the blood she had coughed up earlier. And even if she had wanted to go, her legs wouldn't have let her. She looked down at her legs, which now required frequent injections for the pain, and a bitter smile touched her lips. Ever since the fall through the ice, she had been suffering from complications. Over time, the condition had worsened, to the point where she now needed constant pain management. But the injections only managed the pain, they didn't treat the underlying problem. According to her doctors, she had a year, at most, before she would lose the ability to walk altogether and be confined to a wheelchair for the rest of her life. She covered her face, and her laughter turned to sobs. That was why she couldn't come to my wedding. She didn't want me to see her at her most vulnerable. This was the best ending they could have. Back at the chateau in France, after the last guest had departed, Isabella, fresh from her bath, collapsed into my arms, chattering excitedly about the day's events. As she talked, I wrapped my arms around her. A little drunk and utterly exhausted, I gently pulled her down onto the bed with me. When the kiss ended, she opened her hand, and as if by magic, a ring was nestled in her palm. "I designed this ring myself, the day I realized I was in love with you. I've been dreaming of the day I could finally put it on your finger. And today, I finally did." She slipped the ring onto my finger. "Ethan, I'm so happy I married you. Thank you for wanting to marry me." I looked down at the ring on my finger and smiled, then kissed her again. I'm the lucky one, to have found someone who loves me as much as you do. Having you in my life, every day from now on, it's the luckiest thing that's ever happened to me.